Hello everybody, this is Johns Hopkins with Baltimore Heritage, and we're back with another of our 5-Minute Histories videos. And today I'm in the 1600 block of East North Avenue between Broadway and Harford Road, if you know where that is. And today's going to be a little different. To start with, I'm inside, and adding to that, we're going to talk about history in wax. That's right, I'm at the National Great Blacks of Wax Museum, America's first wax museum dedicated to African American history. It got its start around 1980 as the dream of Dr. Joanne Martin and her late husband, Dr. Elmer Martin. And I am thrilled that in just a second, I'm going to be joined by Dr. Joanne Martin, who still heads up the museum today. But before I turn it over to her, I thought I'd say just a word or two, very briefly, about where we are and how we got a Great Blacks and Wax Museum in the first place. We are in the 1894 former Engine Company number 19 firehouse. It is part of the old East Baltimore Historic District, and it's been here since 1894. The Great Blacks and Wax Museum has not been here since 1894 or as its first place. It got started right around 1980 again as the Martins purchased 4 wax figures using money that they had been saving up for the down payment of a house, and then put them in the back of their car and toted them around to schools, to churches, to shopping malls, really any place that would have them. Their idea was to try to educate and inspire people, especially young people, about their history and about their roots, and especially the undertold stories of their history. If you're curious, those first 4 figures were Frederick Douglass, the abolitionist, Harriet Tubman, the Underground Railroad conductor, Nat Turner, the slave rebellion leader, and Mary McLeod Bethune, the education pioneer. They were doing fine in the back of their car, but in 1984, they got a chance to have a place with a roof on Saratoga Street downtown. That allowed them to expand. And then in 1988, they had the opportunity to move here into this old firehouse, all 10,000 square feet of it. Remember, they had been measuring square feet in the back of their car, so this was a big move. Today, there are over 150 figures here depicted in wax. And if you were thinking, oh, wax museums, those are kind of stiff and boring, think again, especially here. The figures are incredibly lifelike, and they are set in scenes that are dynamic, often uncomfortable. For the Martins, history has always been about telling all of history and telling it in a way that sticks. For me, probably the most powerful exhibit is the recreation of a slave ship going through the infamous Middle Passage, depicting the captives held below in their chains. It is something that you will never forget once you see it here. Not all of the exhibits are horrifying, and not all are even that old. For example, you can see Shirley Chisholm, the first black woman elected to Congress. That's 1968. And we can see Barack Obama, but, well, you know who he is. All right, I'm going to wrap up and turn it over to Dr. Martin by saying over the years they have had many opportunities to move downtown, but they have resisted at each turn. Part of their mission for sure is to educate and to inspire, but another part of their mission is to be a driver for economic revitalization in this part of East Baltimore. And with that, I am going to turn it over to Dr. Martin to say a little bit about the museum that she heads and where they're going in the future. Dr. Martin, we are all yours.
I'm Dr. Joanne Martin, founder, along with my late husband, Dr. Elmer Martin, of the National Great Blacks in Wax Museum. And I'm proud to say that in 2023, the museum turned 40 years old. We started as a museum in 1983 in a storefront in downtown Baltimore on Saratoga Street. And our history does indeed go back to 1980 when we purchased the 4 wax figures. One of the reasons that we chose wax figures is children in particular are going to be drawn to those wax figures. And the minute they ask, what is that or who is that, you are in a position to teach in a way that you might not be with other kinds of art forms. These wax figures put a face on a history that has been faceless. And so you would have found them in the guest bedroom of our 2-bedroom apartment in Baltimore County. and therefore Mary McLeod Bethune's head on the dresser and Frederick Douglass's torso in a corner, and eventually various wax figures occupying the guest bedroom. My husband Elmer, because he was an artist and a collector and a hoarder and all of those things, you couldn't even open the door of that room. So I made an ultimatum: Mary McLeod Bethune has got to go. And so we took her to Saratoga Street, the storefront in downtown Baltimore, and where we had 22 wax figures when we opened up on Saratoga Street.
Not far from the corner of Saratoga Street and Park Avenue in downtown Baltimore is the world's first black wax museum. It's called Great Blacks in Wax, and it recaptures very important parts of American history.
Now over here is Nat Turner, okay?
Great Blacks in Wax opened its doors 7 months ago. The museum is a step back in time and a living tribute to 34 great people, like Booker T. Washington, Phyllis Wheatley, W.E.B. Du Bois, and Dr. George Washington Carver. The concept of the museum was developed by Dr. Elmer Martin and his wife Joanne.
I started out with an idea toward teaching young black people, particularly, what their history is all about, in hopes that their history would serve as an inspiration for self-confidence, higher self-esteem, doing away with feelings of inferiority, just learning their place in history and the contribution that they can make to this country and to the world.
We thought maybe to present it in a visual form would somehow make more of an impact. So going to Spain and seeing that they preserved every aspect of their culture. Same thing was true of France. And then seeing a wax museum and looking at seeing how many tourists went through and what an impact that had sort of brought the idea together.
Starting a wax museum is no easy task. Once a location is selected, then the difficult job of selecting the wax figures and casting them requires weeks of work and planning. And of course, we can't forget that each figure costs no less than $2,000. A tour of the museum is like facing history. It's almost as if you know the characters not only from the history books, but because they look so real to life. People like Henry Box Brown, who escaped from Richmond, Virginia to Philadelphia, Pennsylvania in a shipping box. Harriet Tubman, conductor of the Underground Railroad. And Dr. Martin Luther King, Jr. Elmer and Joanne have big plans for Great Blacks in Wax. A new location, additional wax figures, and a traveling collection. But the basic principle of the museum will remain the same.
We want them not only to leave the museum with some understanding of the outstanding contributions of some of the people, but to want to pursue black history further, to want to go to the library and learn in more detail about a Harriet Tubman, or to learn in more detail about a Frederick Douglass. We want to be a sort of a spark that will spur black people off in terms of learning more about their history and getting into it deeper than they would get into it in our museum. And at the same time, make it exciting and make it fun.
We moved in 1988 to North Avenue with the help of Senator Clarence Blount and Mayor Schaefer. We have the surplus firehouse, and we've been here since. We began around 1995 purchasing the properties in the 1600 block, and therefore looking to create a block-long museum. In phase one, we will be renovating about 5 properties here in from 1601 to 1611, and creating about a 25,000 square foot museum, and then beginning to add to that as time passes, because there is so much history to tell and just not enough room here to tell all of that history. our visitors come from all over the nation, so you can have a school group from Connecticut, as we did a few weeks ago, or a school group from down the street, and they keep me young and energized and enthusiastic about what I have been blessed to do. People can go to our website, greatblacksinwax.org, or they can walk up to our door at 1601 East North Avenue and indicate that they want to volunteer, they want to know more, they want to visit.